Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the ROKER RAPPORT podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav back once again as Chris is on his hollybobs away somewhere, so you've got to suffer me for the second time in a week as we look to preview some of the action going into the Easter weekend. And today I'm delighted to be joined by the EFL Digital Editor at Sky Sports, Simeon Gholam. Hi Simeon.
Hi Gav, how you doing mate? You well?
I am very well, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you for having me back, I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it last time, so it's great to chat about Sunderland again with you guys.
Yeah, you were on earlier in the season with Chris, I think it was November when you were on. Things have changed quite a lot since then in terms of how Sunderland's season has shaped up and how League One has shaped up. I think at that point we were just on the back of a bad run of games where we lost to Rotherham and Sheffield and stuff, which our fans will be more than aware of, that proper low point in the season for us. But after that, things improved slightly, and you actually played a part in giving Lee Johnson the Manager of the Month award, which which came back to bite him on the backside, and then he lost his job, didn't he?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think last time I was on, it was very much back Lee Johnson. He's a good manager. He'll get you to where you need to be eventually. Trust the process, and then I think a couple of months later he was out the door, so that pretty much shows what I know, and it just shows how sort of volatile this industry can be, can't it? So it's a shame it didn't work out for him. I know it was the Bolton result that did it for him, wasn't it, eventually? Which you can understand. I really liked the guy. I've interviewed him a few times. I think he is genuinely a good manager, but obviously he can have, there was a reason he was called Streaky Lee. He can have those sort of performances and those sort of results and those days where things don't quite sort of go according to plan. Things can combust a little bit. It's a shame, but it is what it is. You've got Alex Neil now, sadly probably not in the automatic promotion race anymore, but still plenty of play for the season and an exciting weekend coming up as well. So yeah, lots to look forward to.
I saw a few Sunderland fans on social media after the game at the weekend getting their hopes up a little bit and saying, well, if we win every game from here now in the end of the season, and they drop points, we can still get into the automatics. But yeah, I think that's long gone. As someone from outside of the Sunderland bubble, how do you view that? Because Sunderland were top of the league at the turn of the year and looked like a real contender for the automatic promotion spots. And obviously things have gone the way they've gone, but we now find ourselves just inside of the playoffs, despite the fact that we've had a really, really good run under Alex Neil where we don't seem to be losing any ground. We keep churning through and we keep picking up points. As somebody outside of Sunderland's bubble, then how do you sort of assess where things have gone wrong in terms of where we find ourselves right now?
I mean, I always felt like this season was a little bit of a reset for Sunderland in a lot of ways. It's a very different squad to what you've had before. There was always going to have to be a turnaround because obviously the longer you've spent in League One, the smaller the budget has to get, the more you have to turn things around. And it felt like it was going to be that kind of a time where you had a very small squad for whatever reason. That was the decision at the start of the season to cut a lot of players out. You had a very young squad in a lot of parts, a lot of inexperience, mixed with some experience as well, but a lot of inexperience there, especially in terms of playing for Sunderland as much as anything else. So I always felt like it was going to be more of a difficult season than I think. Obviously, you go into every season thinking Sunderland AFC, you should be in the top two fighting for automatic promotion when you look at the teams above you and look at who you are and where you've been. But in terms of just looking at the squads and the teams around you, it's just, I always felt like it was going to be the kind of season where automatic promotion was not so much going to be a stretch, but it was never going to be any kind of procession of a season when you just look at who's around you, really. So playoffs is always going to be a bare minimum, but potentially what was going to be the result of this season based on what you had at your disposal in many ways.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the top of the table now, and I think it's pretty much in Wigan's hand now to win the league. I think they've got 2 games in hand on MK Dons, 3 points ahead. Rotherham have tailed right off. They're now 6 points behind Wigan. It's interesting how that's going to shape up, isn't it? Because those 3 teams now, it's very much a case of who's got the bottle towards the end of the season. Is it MK Dons have just been outstanding since Liam Manning came in. Wigan have probably exceeded my expectations because I've seen Sunderland beat them twice this season. Wasn't particularly impressed. And when they had that big sort of backlog of fixtures earlier in the season where they had a number of cancellations due to COVID, they done really well in the FA Cup. They done really well in the EFL Trophy. So they had a lot of games to play. And I looked at that and I thought, I don't see how they're going to win enough games between now and the end of the season, given how much football they've got to play. But to their credit, they've done brilliant this season, haven't they? And they would be worthy winners at this stage, I think.
Yeah, 100%. They have been excellent. They've all season. They've, considering the sort of the plight they've had the last couple of years, to turn it around and go again so quickly is been fairly remarkable. And that, I imagine, is something that a lot of Sunderland fans might look at and be like, how have they managed to sort of reset and do this again and get back? And I mean, we're assuming they're getting back into the Championship and they've sort of managed to do it more quickly. But obviously, every club is different. Some ships are harder to steer and turn around than others, and that's just been the case with Sunderland, unfortunately. I mean, I think that the issue for maybe some Sunderland fans is you can kind of understand the likes of Wigan, Rotherham, Sheffield Wednesday, Wickham being around there because they're all clubs that have been relegated more recently than Sunderland. 3 relegated last season, for example. Rotherham tend to always bounce straight back. It's MK Dons and Plymouth that are probably the problem and the sort of the sticking point for a lot in terms of how are these lot above us in many ways. Plymouth have come from League Two more recently, MK Dons as well. And I mean, MK Dons have been exceptional this season. I interviewed again Liam Manning earlier in the season, and he is a very, very impressive character who they've sort of plucked out from he was in the Manchester City system, sort of a New York sort of technical director type. And yeah, they've kind of come from nowhere. I don't think anyone was really expecting them to be this good, sort of mixing in with the sides. I mean, you just at the same time have to just look at the sides below Sunderland, Portsmouth, Ipswich, the likes of them not even in sort of really the consideration anymore. So yeah, it's such a tough league now. There are teams in this league that should be in the Championship at the very least. Some should potentially be in the Premier League as well. So it was always going to be such a battle.
When you look at the table as well, you think one of those 3 teams who I'm talking about going for the title, one of them aren't going to finish inside the top 2, which makes it a more interesting playoff campaign, doesn't it? When you look at perhaps maybe Rotherham dropping into there if their form doesn't improve. Rotherham, who at one stage looked like the runaway leaders in the league, perhaps going against ourselves maybe in the semi-finals. We've still got Rotherham to play as well in the league. But then you look just below Rotherham, Plymouth sitting on 78 points. At the start of the season, we're top, dropped off quite a bit, and then after their change in manager around Christmas time, they've been fantastic as well. But the one thing with Plymouth is they've got probably the hardest running of all the teams in the playoffs. So, I've spoken to a couple of people and they all seem to think that Plymouth are pretty much nailed on for a playoff spot. Would you agree? Do you think Plymouth are a shoe-in?
I think they've got enough about them to get over the line. I know they're the teams below them with sort of games in hand and stuff, but I think they've got enough of a little bit of a buffer there. Obviously, it depends. You never know if they lose both games over Easter weekend. I mean, I'm sure you're hoping they will for obvious reasons. Then you never know how quickly. Again, as you said, Rotherham. I interviewed Paul Warne a month ago or so, and at the time he was almost talking in terms of when they go up rather than if they go up. It wasn't in such stark terms, but normally managers in a certain position will dismiss anything immediately, but he was very kind of open to the possibility of promotion, shall we say. So I don't think he was quite expecting the situation they're in now, where obviously they still have games in hand on MK Dons, but it looks like they can't buy a win at the moment. So you don't know how quickly these things can turn around. But for my money, I'd say Plymouth, not necessarily in 4th, but by hook or by crook, will get to where we'll be in the top 6. Because, I mean, they need to really, really nosedive and also have the 3 sides below them to also have a pretty much almost perfect end to the season as well. So I'd have Plymouth there. The top 3 I can't really call yet in terms of who I think the side that will drop out and be in the playoffs will be. But I think Plymouth are the one side now that are guaranteed to be in the top 6, in the playoffs. But as I said, I also said Backley Johnson, so what do I know?
I was going to say, you've got the kiss of death, because I read that interview with Paul Warne. You gave him manager of the month, and then they've been pretty much terrible since then as well, haven't they? So basically, if what we need you to do is just give manager of the month to whoever Sunderland end up playing in the playoffs.
It was actually Stephen Schumacher who won it last month, but I didn't do the interviews, so I probably should have done for your guys' sake. I can only apologise for that.
Well, and they've only won one of the last three, so
very true.
Yeah. So the rest of the teams in the mix, then you've got if we just say that top four at the minute, those four teams will pretty much remain in around them four spots. Plymouth, I think, despite their running, I think you're right. I think it's going to take a bit of an effort from the teams below to pull them out of that top six. So then you're looking at probably three teams going for two spots. Maybe we shouldn't discount Oxford too early, but we've got Sheffield sitting fifth, played 41 with 73 points on the board, same as Sunderland and Wickham. All three teams are sitting on 73, but Sheffield and Sunderland have played a game less than Wickham. And then obviously we beat Oxford at the weekend, which was a bit of a 6-pointer because they're now 4 points behind Sunderland and we've played a game less. But it does look like it's going to be 2 from that 4, doesn't it? I mean, I don't want you to do us any favours here because you're on a Sunderland podcast. But when you look at those 4 teams, do you think there's any chance that there's anyone else going to really get into the race this late on? Is it likely Ipswich could do a late rally? I don't think possibly. They're possibly too far off, aren't they?
Yeah, I think everyone below Oxford is out of it now. It's just not realistic at this stage in terms of what would have to happen for them to get into the top 6. Oxford, again, I think you probably put paid to their chances of the weekend as well. That was a massive win for you guys in terms of just trying to keep them at bay a little bit. And it looks like they've just hit a really bad patch at the wrong time. And it's hard to see, especially with you and Wednesday having a game in hand on them as well, how they're really going to... A lot will have to go right for them and a lot will have to go wrong for other teams for them to get into the top 6, even though it's still kind of in touching distance. I think it will be the 3. It will be 2 from the 3.
Yeah.
Which 2, I haven't quite decided yet, but it will be 2 from the 3. I think Wednesday will be one of them. I'll say that. The other 2, it just depends on what happens over the weekend, really. You guys... Shrewsbury on Friday, that's absolutely massive. That has to be a must-win 3 points or things might start to look a bit more difficult. You don't want to be, even with games in hand or anything, you don't want to be on the outside looking in at any point. You want points on the board more than anything else. So
yeah, let's look towards that set of games. And so you just mentioned Sunderland play Shrewsbury. Wickham have Plymouth coming to Adams Park which is a game that's played at the same time as the Sunderland game. So that could be interesting because obviously Plymouth are doing quite well in terms of their league position. And then other than that, MK Dons host Sheffield. But what's interesting about that particular game is that it's a day later. So we play on Friday, Wickham play on Friday, and then Sheffield have to wait until Saturday night before they play. That could be quite interesting, couldn't it? Depending on what happens on Friday, you look at it from one perspective. If Sunderland managed to get a win, if Wickham managed to get a win, then all of the pressure is then placed on Sheffield to go to an MK Dons side who are vying for a league title. But then the other side of the coin is if one of us picks up a bad result or both pick up a bad result, that gives Sheffield an extra day to build some momentum and get themselves geared up for what is going to be a difficult game, regardless of what happens in our game.
Yeah, as I said, they could be out of the top 6 by the time their game kicks off on Saturday night, which isn't an ideal situation for them to be in at all. It's the one time, I guess, you guys can thank the Sky Sports schedulers because they normally take an absolute battering for every time they move games, particularly on Easter weekend. I'm sure the Sheffield Wednesday fans aren't happy about it at all, though. So, it's massive. The next sort of those 48 hours are absolutely massive in this race. And it obviously won't do anything mathematical, but it could do something very, very sort of mental for the battle. If you can just get those points on the Friday, you're in such a good position. You've got the easiest game at home. You just have to basically make sure you take advantage of the situation and do all you can do, and then just sit back over the weekend and hope that it goes your way again after that. So yeah, I
was looking at Shrewsbury's recent results and stuff, and they're not a bad team. Like I think this could actually be a bit of a banana skin for Sunderland when you just look at the fact that it was only 3 weeks ago that they battered Rotherham 3-0 at Rotherham. They did lose to MK Dons at the start of the month, but Shrewsbury aren't a bad side. You just look at the players that they've got. They've got one which our fans will be very familiar with in Tom Flanagan playing centre half. But they've got a decent team. They've got 2 decent strikers in Ryan Bowman and Daniel Udo, who I think is their top scorer this season. So it's not going to be plain sailing. I know you've said that we've probably got the easiest game, and I would agree. But as their results recently against decent teams have shown, that they're no mugs, are the Shrewsbury?
No, you're right. As I said, just to clarify, I didn't mean I said it's the easiest game, not an easy game. But it's that point in the season where you want to be playing someone that doesn't have something really to play for.
Yeah,
you want to, short of obviously playing Crewe Alexandra, you want, at this point in the season, you want a home game against a side that don't have something that's going to maybe lift them that extra few percent to really go for it.
Yeah.
So that's, obviously, you don't want to be playing a playoff rival. You don't want to be playing a side going for promotion. You don't want to be playing a side that suddenly realise that they might get relegated. So it's very much a case of, if you're going to handpick a fixture for this point in the season, that would be it, despite the fact that, they have improved a lot as the season's gone on and they have got threats about them, but you should have enough at home to get 3 points in a game like this, and it's the kind of game you need to win if you want to get to where you need to be as well. So
what do you think about that then, in terms of Shrewsbury? They've got 4 games left. They've got nothing really to play for. If you look, I think Charlton are the nearest team above them. They've got 4 more points. They're nowhere near the relegation zone. They managed to secure 3 straight wins at the end of last month, which basically secured their future in the league. So their last 2 games, they've drawn 1, they've lost 1. Obviously, do you think the players maybe thinking about the holidays already?
I mean, you'd have to ask them. It can go one of 2 ways. It can go, right, we're kind of done now. And as I said, I don't really believe in the whole proper on the beach cliche, but it's just the element of, do we really need to double dig in here? Say if Sunderland get an early goal, for example, what is really in it for us? And that's not to write off any element of professionalism. It's just sort of natural to take. Well, you see it all the time, for example, when teams like win the league and then suddenly they spend the last few weeks of the season half drunk and they can't do anything about it. And it's a similar kind of thing, I guess. But then you could also argue the other side, which I'm sure the more pessimistic Sunderland fans will be thinking, in terms of it will free them up and give them that sort of freedom to play and express themselves that Sunderland currently don't have, because Sunderland do have more to play for. And if for whatever reason Shrewsbury do get an early goal, then Sunderland could tighten up, and then you just never know what would happen. So I'm choosing to be optimistic about it and say this is a good fixture for Sunderland in terms of who you want to play at this point in the season. For me, it's always a team with nothing to play for in terms of the league table, if not pride in other things.
Yeah, well, our last 3 home games, we've played Gillingham, who came... by the way, all 3 teams down the bottom end of the table. Gillingham came, put 10 men behind the ball, didn't really come to play football. They knew that if they were going to get anything, they were going to have to try and frustrate us. We got a late winner. Crewe did the exact same thing, and we only won that game 2-0, but it was 2 late goals again. And then Fleetwood, we played Fleetwood at home, and that was another game very similar where they came to frustrate us. So one thing I would say is that teams of a similar ability to Shrewsbury have came to the Stadium of Light in the last month or so, played exactly how I feel Shrewsbury might play. When I've looked at their statistics from their last clutch of games, and they don't create very much, they don't have many shots, they don't keep the ball, they're always very low down in the possession percentages, they don't make many passes. So I'm fully expecting Shrewsbury to come to the Stadium of Light, put 10 behind the ball, try and get a draw, try and frustrate us. And I guess the big take from Sunderland's perspective is that we've got good experience recently of playing teams who set up like that and winning them as well.
I mean, here I am, mate. I'm trying to put a positive spin on things for you against Shrewsbury, and you're just trying to go the other way and say what could all possibly go wrong. Yeah. I know. I completely understand why, but I honestly think it should. I mean, it has to be 3 points with what's going on around you at the weekend. And I think it will be. It might not always be pretty, and I think there can be too much of an expectation for sort of good football, 3-4 nil wins every week. But in a division, historically in the last few years, it's been one of the tightest leagues in terms of how sort of not dissimilar the quality is from sort of top to bottom in terms of, I mean, you don't get the same disparity you get necessarily in the Championship, where teams have just come down from the Premier League more recently, that kind of thing. So there will be a lot of close games. There will be a lot of battling, a lot of teams playing very different styles. But I think it will be 3 points on Friday.
Yeah.
Monday, less sure.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I do think we're going to win the game. I just think it's going to be, based on what I've seen recently, I think it's going to be a it's not going to be a walk in the park, because one thing we've done since Alex Neil came in is just grind out games, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, by the way. Don't take that as a negative. To me, the whole time we've been in League One for these past 4 seasons, we've really struggled to pick apart teams who just come here to frustrate us. And at least since Alex Neil's come in, we found a way to win those games, and that's a mark of a good team, I think. I don't know what you think, but it shows that we're heading in the right direction. And I actually think the fact that we're grinding out results and keeping clean sheets bodes very well for if we do finish in the top 6.
Yeah, I think he's been more flexible than Lee Johnson. I think that's fair to say, in terms of he's been more willing to make tweaks. And I know that was always a frustration with Johnson at Sunderland and Bristol City, and that's why things can sometimes, or did sometimes, go wrong under him. Alex Neil he hasn't come in with a sort of a direct, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do things. It's been very much I'm here halfway through the season, I don't have a proper time to really put my ideas on the team when we're in the middle of a promotion race, so we just need to get things over the line and then potentially worry about things like philosophy in the summer, for example, when the sun's out and hopefully you're back in the Championship. But it's been very much that, and I think that's why there have been a lot of late wins, because, as he said, teams come and sit back, and he's found ways to get you over the line in recent weeks, which is why you're back now in the position you are in terms of sat in the top 6. But it's never going to be pretty. It's never going to be easy. And to be honest, where's the fun in that? You want it to be. I mean, part of you wants it to be a grind. It has to hurt, doesn't it? Otherwise, you can't reap the rewards at the end of it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're getting to celebrate a lot of late goals, which is nice. And again, you would rather the game was done and dusted early doors, but at the same time, there's nothing better than watching your team score a late winner, is there? So, but yeah, you touched on Monday. What we looked slightly ahead of that. Then I think you're right in what you say about the fact we've probably got the pick of the fixtures from the 3 teams vying for those 2 spots on Friday, and that makes it probably a must win, because you then look to Monday. We have Wycombe playing AFC Wimbledon, who haven't won in 20 odd games, and then obviously we go to Plymouth, which is a long old trip. It's on Sky. We never win on Sky. I don't. Maybe that's just me. It just feels like whenever we're on Sky, we never win.
I've heard that before.
And then Chef Wed, because of the way the schedules work out, Chef Wed have to wait until Tuesday night before they play, and they're at home to Crewe, who are already down. Yeah. So I will not discount Oxford totally. Oxford have got to play MK Dons on Tuesday night. So hopefully by that point Oxford are well out of the race, and that's a formality for MK Dons, and we don't have to worry about them. But it does look a little bit more difficult, doesn't it, for Sunderland, to put it nicely, that we have to go to Plymouth, who are right in the mix with us.
Yeah.
And we probably have to go there and win, just to be sure that we're going to stay in the race, with looking at how Wycombe and Chef Wed have basically got games where you would expect them to win.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a Sunderland fan, I would probably, if someone offered me 4 points from 6 this weekend, I'd probably say, yeah, it'll keep you where you need. I mean, obviously 6 from 6 would be ideal, but in terms of would I accept 4 from 6 points now, I'd probably say yes. Beat Shrewsbury, get a point at Plymouth, and then crack on into the next week. I think that would be a very, very good result. Because, I mean, I feel like one way or another, it's going to go down to the final day of the season.
Yeah.
Cambridge at home, looking a bit further ahead, Cambridge at home is must win again, obviously, in terms of Cambridge, again, another good side, consolidated very well in League One this season. But again, it's another team in that Shrewsbury bracket of they don't have much to play for left this season. It's the kind of game you need to turn up and win. And they do try and play a bit more football than the likes of Shrewsbury do. So it might play into your hands a little bit, that one. I'm sure everyone listening will be more aware it's those 2 last games of the season that are a little bit terrifying in terms of the teams you're playing and where they are and what they might have to fight for, because you can guarantee if Morecambe are in the bottom 4 or in the relegation fight and Sunderland need a win to get into the top 6 last day of the season, that game will be on Sky as well. And then you just never know. It's just amazing how quickly the season has gone and how close we are to the end of it. It's the end of it. It's 2.5 weeks away, isn't it? Blimey, it's flown by.
Yeah. I was looking at Plymouth's results, and they're just a machine at home. They don't tend to lose very often. I think they haven't conceded at home since they lost to Rotherham in February.
Yeah.
But even looking past that, it's basically clean sheets and wins most of the season at home for Plymouth.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough for us. I think if you take into account how good they are at home, the fact they probably only really need another win to put themselves into the playoffs, it could be tough for us. But at the same time, if you look at the games which are being played, if I skip back a little bit, if we go to Friday, Plymouth play Wickham. If they win that game, maybe it takes the pressure off a little bit. I don't know. I don't know how these things work mentally. I guess when a manager is trying to gear his squad up for promotion, they can't afford to take the foot off the gas at any point, really. But Plymouth's last few results haven't been great, so it'll be interesting to see what shape they go into this game in.
The Easter weekends, it's an interesting one because obviously you have the Friday, Monday aspect of it, which makes it feel like a proper double header. Yeah. But then it's kind of the same spacing as when you play Saturday, Tuesday night, which is quite a regular thing for EFL sides.
Yeah.
But it's the way it's Friday, Monday feels like it's a proper, it's almost like it feels like the two games are connected to each other in a very strange way. It's like you're looking at it as a very proper, in a way you don't the rest of the season really in terms of a fixture list. But this always feels like a very kind of important weekend in the season because of when it is where it is. And you always get, you don't know what's going to happen on Friday and how much that can impact what happens on Monday. So it's fascinating to play out. And you obviously want to look ahead and think, oh, we'll win this, we'll draw this, we'll win this. But it's just you do. I know it's a cliche that managers say to me all the time, and it annoys me, but I'm going to use it as well. You do have to just take it one game at a time and just not get too caught up in what might happen in 3 or 4 games and where you could be. Because I can guarantee it won't. Nothing will play out the way you think it will. Because if it did, we'd all be a lot richer because we'd all be winning a lot of money in the bookies. So it's just got to kind of take it as it comes and just hope for the best really, and just worry about Friday at first and then take it from there. But I mean, you can't because if you then start thinking too much about Monday, then you take the eye off the ball on Friday, and then suddenly if you do drop points down to Shrewsbury, then that is real pressure going to Plymouth, and that's the last thing you want. You want to go there off the back of a win at the very least. So let's just say the table remains as it is. I don't know, it might not, but let's just say that's the top 6 going into the final week of the season, and the playoff spots are occupied by Rotherham, Plymouth, Sheffield and Sunderland. Putting your foresight glasses on there and looking ahead as well as you can, how do you see it playing out this sort of end of the season? Then, I mean, it's going to be it's difficult, isn't it, to predict because it's such a lottery. But those are 4 decent teams, and it's going to be interesting. I think it would work out, wouldn't it? So if it stayed as is, Rotherham would play Sunderland, Plymouth would play Sheffield over 2 legs. Yeah, if it was me, I would rather avoid Rotherham than the other 2 because I just feel like, I know it's so easy to look at form and momentum and stuff, but they have a good side and they've been there before, they've done it before. They won at Wembley a week and a half ago from an almost impossible position. I think they equalised very, very late on against Sutton and beat them in the final. So just in terms of that and in terms of what they have done in the past and what they know they can do, they're the side I would like to avoid in the playoffs if I was Sunderland. I would be more comfortable. I know Plymouth are very good at home, but in terms of then bringing them, either getting a decent result them against home over 2 legs, I'd be more comfortable playing against them. Wednesday, just again, they're all good sides, aren't they? It's quite. I mean, I feel like I've talked myself out of all 3 of them now in terms of who I want to face, but I think Rotherham are the side I would want to face. But to be honest, I wouldn't really want to play any of them.
Yeah, well, Rotherham have that thing in them where they just seem to find a way to get promoted every time they're in League One. But Plymouth, Sheffield and Sunderland are all well-supported teams, and that plays a big part when it comes to the 2 legs, doesn't it? You know, Sheffield are like us; they've got a big home support. They travel well. Importantly, Sheffield have a really good squad. I feel like out of the 4 teams, they're the most like us in terms of depth because they dropped down out of the Championship. They were probably a little bit unlucky, weren't they, when they got a points deduction, which killed off their season. So they came into this league with a fair few players who are probably above the standard that they find themselves at.
Yeah, 100%.
And that makes it again more interesting going into the playoffs because those big players, you like your Barry Bannons, your Lee Gregory's, they can then come to the fore and be game winners in the same way that perhaps Ross Stewart, Alex Pritchard, Patrick Roberts can for Sunderland. So I wouldn't want to be putting any money down on it yet. I think it's going to be difficult to try and work it out.
To be honest, if I was Sunderland, I'd probably want to play Wickham in the playoffs, and that's not to disparage Wickham at all. It's just in terms of out of those sides who I'd be most comfortable playing against, is probably them. But then that would require you both getting into the playoffs first. So they're probably your least likely option at the moment, just in terms of where you both are in the league.
Yeah, but there's a bit of needle there between the two teams as well. We've had a few battles down the years where players have been sent off and their players have said things and our players have said things. So that would be interesting. That would probably be the most interesting tie if it's somehow through its wheel. But yeah, thanks, Simeon. Thank you very much for joining us, mate. I really appreciate it. I hope that come the next time people hear my voice on this podcast, I'm talking about a couple of Sunderland wins, because it's going to be tough. I think one thing we've probably banged home on this podcast is that it's incredibly difficult to try and predict what's going to happen. There's still, even despite you look at it and think, well, we've only got 5 games left, that's still a lot of football to be played, and anything can happen. You know, we could have if there's one team who could balls this up, it's us. So that is why we are incredibly cautious about our chances. But I think I'm quietly confident that we've got just about enough to finish in that top 2. And I feel as though that what Alex Neil has done in addressing the poor defence and addressing the fact that teams seem to come to Sunderland and treat us a little bit differently and play in a certain way at the Stadium of Light, I think he's done a brilliant job in turning that around in such a short space of time, with a squad which I believe is probably the deepest in the league. It might not be the best 11, it might not be the team that functions the best, but in terms of the depth he's got, it's, to me, the best squad in the league, and that has shown in recent games where he's made substitutes that have made an impact. And fingers crossed that bodes well for the rest of the season. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us, mate. I hope that you have been able to provide our listeners with some clarity on what's going on.
I hope so too. I've been able to provide a little bit of positivity and an outside perspective, and hopefully 3 points on Friday, so you can at least enjoy a rare calm Saturday during the football season, and then start panicking again on Sunday ahead of Monday. So
yeah, that would be nice. For the listeners, thank you for joining us. We've got plenty coming up on ROKERReport.com in terms of coverage around the game, so don't forget to check that out. I think we'll have a reaction pod from the pub with Ant and the lads Friday, because of course we play a day earlier than we normally do, so they'll be in the Hilton probably on Friday to record that. And yeah, we'll catch you later. Fingers crossed something to get the job done. Cheers.